Preparations for a major ice storm are well underway today in Travelers Rest, South Carolina. Precipitation is expected to begin tonight as a period of snow, and then as that warm nose comes in over top that sub-freezing layer, that's likely going to change that precipitation over to freezing rain and maybe sleet as well. And that ice is going to accumulate on power lines as well as other infrastructure, and long-term power outages are expected across the Carolina Piedmont. A pretty significant ice storm, one of the biggest ones in years to impact this region, is expected to happen especially tonight through tomorrow, and it looks like possibly greater than a half an inch of ice accumulation, maybe even greater than an inch in some of those hardest hit locations are expected across the Carolina Piedmont, and that includes the I-85 corridor through the Greenville, South Carolina area up through Charlotte. Off to the north across the higher terrain in western North Carolina, that's where that snowfall max is expected, and snowfall well in excess of a foot, especially along those highest ridges of the mountains of western North Carolina, seems very possible. And I could also see those locations directly underneath that cold upper level low, locations into central Tennessee like Nashville as well. Those locations certainly could overperform in terms of the snowfall, because directly underneath that cold pocket of air, there is a greater potential for dynamical cooling of that precipitation and maybe a greater snowfall than some of the models are indicating. But you can see that Tree Expert Tree Services, these vehicles are parking here in the parking lot in anticipation of that major ice storm. A lot of trees are going to be down. A lot of power lines are going to be down as well. And these are going to be the heroes in the days after this ice storm, trying to recover that power, trying to fix those downed trees and some of the other damage that's going to be caused by this ice storm. An ice storm warning is in effect just to the south and to the east of the Greenville area. Winter storm warning in effect here in Travelers Rest. And again, that precipitation is expected to begin tonight as a period of snow, changing over to freezing rain and sleet during the morning hours tomorrow and Sunday, and then a period of snow again on the backside. Widespread power outages are expected here across the Carolina Piedmont. I'm live in Travelers Rest, South Carolina, where a winter storm warning is in effect, but it looks like the main impacts from this storm system are going to be more of an ice storm here. It is going to begin as a period of rain, change over to snow, but then that warm nose is going to come up and over top those sub-freezing temperatures, and that's going to create a pretty dangerous situation across the Carolina Piedmont, and that includes here in the upstate South Carolina. You can see people lined up here to fill up with propane in anticipation of widespread power outages from this freezing rain storm. Looks like freezing rain accumulation is going to be greater than a half an inch here. That's going to accumulate on the power lines as well as other infrastructure, creating widespread power outages. So you can see lines here of people packed, trying to load up on that propane to prepare for this winter storm. The precipitation is going to begin overnight tonight, and it is likely going to begin as rain, maybe even some snow, initially as a period of snow, and then it's likely going to change over to more freezing rain as that low pressure approaches from the west. A low-level jet's going to develop just above the ground, a warm conveyor belt of moisture and warmer temperatures, and that could push the air just above the ground, about a kilometer or two above the ground. If you get that warm nose just a little bit above freezing, that's going to allow for liquid water droplets to fall in the relatively shallow sub-freezing layer, and that precipitation is going to freeze on impact, accumulating in the form of ice. And looks like ice accumulations could be in excess of a half an inch, maybe even in excess of an inch in some of those harder hit locations across the Carolina Piedmont. Just to the north of here in the mountains of western North Carolina and closer to that North Carolina-South Carolina border, it should remain all snow up there. It looks like even the snowfall max could be across the mountains of western North Carolina. Some of those higher ridges could get well in excess of a foot. Some of those balds up there, Mount Mitchell, could also get well in excess of a foot, maybe even approaching 2 feet in some of those really highest peaks of western North Carolina. Most areas, though, several inches of snow down in the deep valleys of western North Carolina. But a pretty substantial storm system is going to eject overnight tonight. Very impactful for this region, especially along the I-85 corridor through the Carolina Piedmont, where a major ice storm